Now that we have our lighting and Arnold render set up, we're ready to animate our scene and generate the frame range. We want this to rotate 360 degrees around the model that we've created. So rather than animate a camera, it's much easier to group all this content and rotate it on its y-axis. So I'm going to zoom back a bit and I'm going to select everything in my scene except the light. The light will remain where it is. I'll hit Command G to group and I'll center the pivot. Now just to make sure it kind of rotates where I'd like it to, I'm going to go to the top view. And when I hit W, I can see my pivot might be just a little off here. So I would like it to be in the middle of all these. If you could imagine, this is almost a bit of a triangle here. I could hold down my D key and I can now move the pivot to a different position. So right there looks pretty good. And now I'm going to go to my perspective view. Now I've also introduced a thing called the camera gate, and that's that gray film that's around the perimeter of the viewport. And I got that by going up to the word show inside the viewport of the perspective view and clicking on the box that is white that has a gray box inside of it. And the camera gate shows me the aspect ratio of my frames for my animation. So I'll want to pay attention to those when I actually zoom in or zoom out once we've animated. Now once I've got everything grouped, I'm going to go to the channel box and I'll name it all. And I want to make sure I freeze the transform. So I'll go up to Modify Freeze Transform and I'll make sure I'm back at the beginning of my timeline, frame 1. I've set the frame range from 1 through 125. And while I'm on frame 1, I'm going to right click on the word rotate Y and choose key selected. I'll go to the very end of my timeline and I will change that 0 to a 360. So I should be able to drag through my timeline and it will rotate my scene. Now that I have my animation key framed, I'm ready to set the frame range in the render settings. I'm going to go to the top of the user interface, and just to the left of the hypershade ball, you'll see a Hollywood clapboard with a little blue gear in it. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to name my file. Never precede the name of my animation with a number, it won't render. This will be Candy Box. And I'm going to choose the image format TIFF, and then down where it says Frame Animation Extension, I'll click on that and choose the very last choice so that we can composite this in After Effects. I'll set my frame range from 1 to 125, and I'm going to set it for every 2 frames. We'll need to compress this to embed it inside a PDF, so the frame range will have to be much lower than 24 frames per second, so we can kind of expedite the work here by reducing the number of frames that will be rendered out. Now I'm going to see where my path is taking my imagery. So I have to make sure that my path is led into my project folder. So in order to do that, I'll go to File, Set Project. I'll go to my folder, select the image folder, and set, and then create default workspace. Now all we need to do is hold down the space bar, go to Render, and choose Render Sequence. And Maya will do the rest.